Good evening, everyone. Sorry for the late delay. It's tax season. I'm getting my butt kicked. It is Wednesday. It's a day of the week. I'm Duane Whitmer. So here is your weekly Whitmer Wednesday. Today's a great day for one of these because I don't know where if you live, but if you live in Western New York, it's rainy, it's icy, it's snowy, it's dreary out. It's a pretty crappy day. So here we are doing a quick live for my weekly Whitmer Wednesday. This week's going to be a great topic. This is one that I talk about quite a bit when I do events and do meetings and stuff and talk to people about this. It really breaks down how in New York State, the GOP and the Republican Party is pretty much a reactionary party that has little to no impact on statewide politics, and then dives into how they could have more influence and actually accomplish things if they had a little bit of political strategy, stopped being a completely useless reactionary party, and actually planned out kind of a decent plan of attack. We'll go into details on that. So before we begin, like I said, this is the weekly Whitmer Wednesday. I'm Duane Whitmer. Here we are. I'll start my timer. I like to keep these to 15 minutes because really no one cares. Attention span's not very great. And no one really wants to hear someone talk for 2 hours anymore. It's 2023. So this week, we're going to dive into the first thing about how the GOP is consistently and constantly outsmarted by the left. And a lot of people are going to get mad when I say this, but you really got to hear it. And a great example of this was after 9/11. 9/11 happens, planes hit the Twin Towers, they go down. And what is the GOP's response to that? Well, we need to make a massive surveillance program, but we're only going to spy on terrorists. We're only going to spy on people that we deem as terrorists. The government is going to create this agency, the NSA, the TSA, all these massive jobs programs for security theater, and we're going to spy on people that we think are terrorists or extremists or bad people. And so that happened in 2001, and the Republicans wrote it, and President George Bush, a Republican, passed it. And now here we are 20 years later, and those programs are used to spy on every American. And if you hate, progressivism, and if you're worried about, these massive government programs, they're now being used to spy on everyone. It's shown that there's millions of Americans on watch lists. There's millions of people, have problems with this. It was a massive jobs program for security theater. Now it's being used against people like you and me. A great example of it is those same programs were used to find and arrest people who were involved in January 6th. So Republicans create a system that is now used against them. Their reactionary mindset to build something is now being used against them by the progressive left. That's a problem. And the reason why I get so mad at the GOP is because it's used against people like me too, and that really frustrates me. This is actually something similar happening in my own county of Erie County, New York, where I live. There was a racially motivated mass shooting in a Tops in Buffalo. A white dude didn't like black people, shot up a Tops and killed 10 people. Pretty openly admitted that the reason why he went there was because of the high gun control, low gun ownership. He knew he'd be shooting fish in a barrel. And so our Republican sheriff and our legislator, which is controlled by the Dems, came out with but the Republican legislator supported this, a mass surveillance program in Erie County to add more sheriff jobs, more funding to the Erie County Sheriff to surveil extremists. Well, I asked our sheriff, what is an extremist? How do you define an extremist? Well, people that have extreme thoughts. Well, what's an extreme thought, and how do you determine if they're having extreme thoughts? Well, we're going to just monitor them. Well, how are you going to monitor them? How do you pick who's monitored? Because there's a list of who you're monitoring. Do they know you're monitoring them? Are you pulling warrants? Are you, what probable cause do you have to monitor people? Are you going to pick people who own guns because it was a mass shooting? Are you going to pick people who, you don't like, they didn't vote or support you? How do you know who to pick? And all these surveillance programs clearly aren't working because there's mass shootings all the time. So it's clearly not a great system. It's clearly a poorly run jobs program for security theater. So here we are again. Once again, the GOP is coming out in favor, especially in Western New York, of these mass surveillance programs that once a progressive leftist gets in there will be used exclusively against you. So you're building your own system of oppression. And in New York, this is a terrible example, but it's happening all the time. Another example is, this is where a lot of conservatives and Republicans get mad at me, is the whole Back the Blue movement. is in my opinion, a psychological warfare move by the left, because the left knows, look, if you're in New York State, who's enforcing the SAFE Act? Andrew Cuomo wasn't arresting you. Andrew Cuomo wasn't prosecuting you. Andrew Cuomo wasn't putting you in jail, even though he was the one that signed the SAFE Act and supported it. He wasn't the one making the arrests and doing the investigation. When the lockdown happened, Andrew Cuomo wasn't the one arresting children in New York City for not wearing masks. Andrew Cuomo wasn't the one showing up at businesses. When we asked the health department to politely leave the gym we were at, it wasn't Andrew Cuomo and Letitia James that showed up with the health department. It was the Erie County Sheriff's Department. The whole mindset around backing the blue is a flawed mindset because, A, as a libertarian, I don't believe you should support any industry blindly. But B, that's who's being used against you to enforce the progressive left or the progressive rights laws. So it's a mindset that you're literally supporting the system of oppression. And so it's a very reactionary, knee-jerk move. One of the guys that ran for, Hamburg, where I live in the town of Hamburg, his whole thing was paying the police. We're going to pay the police. Great, but my question was, great, so you're going to pay the police something that they can't make in the free market. So they have a job that they can't give up because they make too much. Well, what happens when it comes down to it and they say, oh, we need to start doing this? The new natural gas ban that's coming into effect. Who's going to show up at your house to enforce it? Kathy Hochul's not going to knock on my door fully kitted up with a plate carrier and an AR pattern rifle with a sidearm and tell me I have to take my gas stove out of my house. It's not going to be Kathy Hochul. It's going to be the police. And so the longer you support them, you're supporting the system that's being used to oppress you. I'm sorry, and I hate to say it, and I was talking to a client about this today. It's part of the business deal. You have to be willing to walk away. You have to be willing to draw a line in the sand and walk away from a business deal. And the GOP is terrible at this. The GOP is terrible at thinking outside the box and adapting a different strategy. In New York, the Dems control the state. The Dems control the legislature. The Dems control the Assembly and Senate. The Dems have all statewide offices. They're going to control it. So to continue to keep running against them is like running into a wall, hoping that next time it's going to open up and you're going to run through it. It's never going to happen. And so it's time for a strategical plan, a strategic plan and a strategic shift. And the GOP just isn't doing it. Another great example is IDAs. Actually, a pretty left guy in New York, Sean Ryan, has a plan that kind of affects IDAs, kind of tears them down a little bit. It's not as extreme as the abolition of IDAs, which I'd like to see, but it's a little bit, it takes the power and corruption away from IDAs a little bit, like 8%. Not 100%, but 8% is better than 0%. And the GOP's response is, well, we need IDAs because they're helping bring businesses to New York. And here's the thing, the Republicans like to say that the Democratic control of New York has hurt the economy, it's factually correct. New York State has one of the highest costs of governments in the country, least friendly business state, highest tax burden. New York State's not a good place for business. Highest employment costs, highest insurance costs. New York State is a terrible place to do business. As a business owner who deals with business owners, I can tell you, New York State is one of the shittiest places to do business. I can attest to that as a business owner. So why are you allowing the progressive left, the Dems, to use IDAs to mask how bad the economy is? You're allowing the Dems to bribe businesses to come here to mask how shitty the economy is. You're allowing the Dems to have a cop-out. But because the GOP is a reactionary party and the Dems support it, they can't support it. They're not looking at the big picture. Plus, a lot of the GOPers are mad at the solar farms going in. They're mad at putting, allegedly trying to put wind turbines on Lake Erie. They're mad about a solar farm in Genesee County. They're mad about another solar farm coming in. They're mad about this other plant coming in. Well, what is the state? Let's think strategic instead of just, we're going to run Lee Zeldin, who lost, by the way. Lee Zeldin didn't win. I'd love to see all the people that told me Lee Zeldin was going to win come back and apologize. They're never going to do that. They're stupid. Can't help them. But look, what is the government using to put these businesses in place? They're using IDAs. They're using IDAs to essentially they're laundering money from the taxpayers to the business through IDAs and development corporations. If you abolish them, a lot of these things aren't going to happen. So it's time for a strategic shift and a change in policy analysis and a change in kind of policy strategy. And I just don't see the leadership of the GOP really being smart enough to do this. I think that they're content with all the government jobs that they provide. Look, Erie County GOP, the chair works for political candidates. The vice chair works at the Board of Elections. The second vice chair is like a retired social worker for government job. The treasurer's retired health and human services government job. The secretary worked for the government. I think he's a retired teacher, but that might be wrong with that. You got all these government jobs. All of these people that work for the government telling you that they support small government. They don't support shit except getting that paycheck and pension from the taxpayers. So the GOP in New York State is an absolute useless organization run by criminals, and it's time to have, a frank conversation on what to do differently. And a lot of people say, well, we're going to vote them out. Good luck. They control the machine. They go to all the people that they hire and say, hey, you have a government job. You're literally paid to do nothing. You can't make this in the real world. If you go to the free market and have to apply for a job, you're going to have to actually do work, and you're going to make less. You're not going to get the sweet, sweet benefits. So what are they going to do? They're going to sell out and support their crony job and their friend to keep it. They're not going to vote in an outsider because they're going to lose their job. And the sooner that these people realize this and start to change their strategies, which is why I'm big on the defiance agenda, the state of defiance and direct action, because I'm not relying on the GOP. I'm not relying on politicians who are, quite frankly, some of the dumbest people I ever met to impact legislation. I'm not relying on them anymore, because this is it. The GOP in New York State will continuously and constantly get outsmarted and outflanked by the left. And the only programs they support, which is paying police, paying corrections officers, paying government employees, all those systems are going to be used against them. It's kind of like a sad thing to see. Hopefully people watch this and learn. A lot of them don't want to hear it. They don't want to learn it, or they don't want to admit it because, well, my son's a correction officer. My dad's a sheriff. Well, hate to hear it, but look, that's the sad truth. And so, this week we're talking about that and more political strategy. Like I said, if you want something done, it's time to not rely on politicians. It's time to not rely on the political parties. And now someone's going to say, some boomer FUD GOPer is going to watch this and say, well, Duane, you don't say anything about the Democratic Party. Pee-pee poo-poo, Democrats are bad. Yeah, I'm not saying they're good. The Democratic Party does the same thing, except since they control New York, they're leading the charge. Now they're botching it. And eventually I'll talk about, I think next week I'm going to talk about how New York State has failed miserably on the legalization of cannabis, and they're getting taken to the woodshed by direct citizen action. Sticker stores and the reservations are taking the Dems to the woodshed. We'll talk about that next week. So it's not like the Dems are any better. I don't believe that the Democratic Party is a savior of humanity. I think the Dems in New York are even worse because they're a bigger organization, so they have more jobs they have to put out there. So they have, more stupid people in roles they shouldn't be in. But as far as it goes, if you're watching this, relying on either political party to save you is not a valid. It's not a valid thing to do. It's not a safe bet. Because they're not coming. So that's why I'm so adamantly pro state of defiance agenda, and direct citizen action, because there's a saying, I don't even know, but it's something about like poop in one hand and hope in the other and see what fills up first. That's what it's like relying on politicians and government jobs to save the day. But we're hitting the 14-minute mark, so we're coming toward the end. But that's where we're at, is that fundamentally, I don't believe that the two parties are going to solve your problems and make the country any better, and the state any better, the county any better. Really, they're going to win elections, sell out to their jobs program, and continue to suck at what they do. And that's really it. So as far as strategy goes, direct citizen action and state of defiance is always going to be superior. It relies on you to do more. It's going to make you more uncomfortable. You got to do some extra work. But that's really what it comes down to, is if you're looking for a savior, you're not going to find one in the ballot box. You're going to find one in the mirror. And the sooner people realize that, the better we can make places, better make this country better. Pardon me. Guys, I'm tired. It's tax season. I am getting my ass beat by tax season. It's been a really good year, but, a lot of people coming in and getting propagandized against by yours truly. You love to see it. I've only made one person cry because she really supported taxation. So when I told her she should pay more in taxes and why come to me and write things off, just pay more in taxes, she got really mad. Told me that she supports roads and schools. And I said, well, how are the roads on the way here? And she goes, well, I got a flat tire and a pothole. I said, well, you should pay more taxes. What the fuck? But not the point. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. I hope you guys have a great week. I think next week we're going to talk about, to balance out so some boomer FUD doesn't whine about how I shit on the GOP this week. I think next week we're going to talk about how direct action is spanking the Democrats in the Office of Cannabis Management in New York with the failed legalization of marijuana and talk about that. So I think that'll be next week's conversation. Until next week, you guys have a great one. Thanks for tuning in. If you guys follow my page tomorrow, I will be in Bergen at the Firing Pin on their podcast. Tune in there. Watch me talk about the Defiance Agenda and direct action. So hey, thanks guys for tuning in. I hope you guys have a great week. If you guys are in Western New York, hope you stay in. It's a little icy out there. I almost fell on my butt in the driveway. So take care, guys. Have a great week. Stay warm, and see you next week.